Peace to all within the sound of this broadcast. This particular broadcast is in reference to public housing, more specifically New York City Housing Authority, and its transfer of properties to private management companies. Now, many of us grew up in public housing, and if you didn't, you know and are close to someone who did. We called it the projects, a place where I grew up and where much of my family still lives to this day. I came across some information that is pertinent to every resident of public housing, not just in New York, but everywhere. We often see things through the lens of race and systematic oppression, and for good reason. However, sometimes the changes that hit closest to home are hardly detectable to the naked eye. Happenings that take place above many of our heads in corporate offices and deals that are beyond our mental, physical, and financial reach. I recently posted a video paying homage to my hometown, Bayview Houses in Canarsie section of Brooklyn, what we know as Medina, the same area of Medina where our righteous brother Fakim, also known as Father Divine, taught entire projects, most notably Brook Ellen Houses, otherwise known as Brookline, or Nubia, right on the other side of Canarsie. When I posted that video, a friend of mine commented. He said his company was taking over that community. I replied and asked him which company, which he said Wavecrest Management. I looked up the company. Wavecrest history goes back to the 1960s, and they have gained serious political weight in the early 2000s. He told me Wavecrest is taking over a bunch of New York City Housing Authority properties all over the city, and he's the general manager for a property formerly known as Edgemere Projects in Far Rockaway, Queens, a large complex of 28 buildings and 1,400 units. My friend told me he wished he had gotten a job to manage Bayview himself because of the relationships that he has in the community. My friend spoke enthusiastically. He said it's going to be good, that they're going to make great changes and upgrades. He talked about a new system for handling repairs, way more efficient than the old New York City Housing Authority ways, through an app called Property Meld that tenants download to their phone to communicate and interface with management and maintenance workers directly. But what stuck out to me the most is when my friend said nothing gets erased. He said tenants will be able to rate workers and everything will get recorded. I did some research on this app that they are using. On the surface, it's for scheduling maintenance. However, for a giant corporate entity like Wavecrest partnering with the city, the implications are a bit curious, if not scary. This app becomes a digital central nerve system that remembers everything, every complaint, every photo and video a tenant or worker uploads, every dispute with a neighbor. It is far more than a maintenance app. It is a dedicated data aggregation and surveillance tool. Managed by AI technology, it all goes into a permanent record, a record that can and will be used against tenants in housing court, which often comes down to a paper trail. Property Meld automatically builds this paper trail for the landlord, making privacy a thing of the past. Putting our lives on public display, our homes become open books for corporate stockholders, especially in public housing. This app enables zero tolerance, compliance-based management style. Minor previously overlooked infractions now can be logged, traced, and escalated with bureaucratic efficiency. The promise of renovation is debate. However, the switch is a system of total transparency for the tenant and total opacity for the corporation. Your home is no longer a private sanctuary. It is, or it will become, the most data-rich, monitored front in the battle between public and private life. This is all happening under a city program called Pact, which stands for Permanent Affordability Commitment Together. The way it works, Nycha still owns the land. However, they lease the properties to companies like Wavecrest for a 99-year lease. It reminds me of the 99-year lease the city gave Allah and the 5%ers back in 1967 for the Urban League Street Academy, known today as a law school in Mecca. Yet, this corporate entity has far more resources, and its values may not be about the people, yet rooted in corporate interests. However, when you look closer, this is bigger than just an app. This is about the blueprint for a smart city, where our data is being collected and harvested, monetized and utilized to keep us in control, starting with the most vulnerable of our communities. Think of our low-income housing projects as a large database or data pool. The goal for these corporations is to tie everything together. Our information, our identities are being locked down with the Real ID, a federal standard that creates a national ID database. Your money, my money, is being pushed into the digital world with talks of stablecoin, digital cash controlled by banks that could one day be programmed with smart contracts. Imagine your rent voucher automatically paying Wavecrest. And if you violate a lease rule, your funds could be frozen. Now, all this may sound far-fetched. However, this is the plan. A kind of social credit that's already taking place. Now, this isn't just some abstract fear. It's a logical endpoint of the corporate takeover we are witnessing with Wavecrest. The very architects of these digital systems are sounding the alarm. Professionals who left Silicon Valley in protest explains how the facial recognition in your phone maps your face to create a unique digital profile, and how our smart devices form wireless mesh networks that tracks us 24/7. A system called a digital panopticon. This infrastructure is being built now for residents in Wavecrest Management properties. This panopticon becomes a part of the upgrade. The data is harvested by the convenience of the Property Meld app. Your complaints, your photos, your videos, your interactions just doesn't stay with them. It feeds into platforms built by companies like Palantir, a data analytics firm funded by the CIA that specializes in predictive policing. Palantir absorbs data from everything like social media, license plate readers, public records, and now from property management systems. Wavecrest isn't just managing apartments. They may be shifting our communities into the most connected, monitored nodes on a smart city grid. What we are witnessing is the rollout of a digital master plan for social control, and our public housing developments are being used as the blueprint. Now let's be clear, when you lay out all the facts about New York City Housing Authority, Wavecrest, Property Meld, and the 99-year lease, someone would inevitably say this all sounds like a conspiracy theory. However, let's unpack that. Conspiracy comes from the Latin word conspirare, which means to breathe together, to unite in purpose, to plan. And we all plan, or we should plan. Families plan budgets. Communities plan events. Corporations and governments also plan, not necessarily in the shadowy back rooms filled with cigar smoke, but also in boardrooms, during investor calls, and in public and private partnership agreements. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And what we are witnessing is not a secret plot. It is a visible, well-funded plan being executed in plain sight, right before our eyes. Certain groups of people are in fact coming together for one common cause: to extract wealth and control from our communities. In today's economy, data is the new oil and gold. While many of us lack the capital, experience, and infrastructure to collect and leverage the data from our own neighborhoods. Entities like New York City Housing Authority partner with corporations, management firms like Wavecrest, have both the scale and resources to do exactly that. Think of it this way: managing thousands of apartments doesn't just generate rental income, it also generates behavioral data. And this data is a super mega gold mine. And the capitalist mindset doesn't just look at a river, it looks to build a dam and a power plant to harness this energy. And this is exactly what's happening here. Property Meld isn't just a maintenance app, it's the dam, intercepting the natural flow of tenant life, channeling every repair request, every photo, every video, every conversation into a controlled, measurable stream. Companies like Palantir and other data analytics firms act as the power plant, converting that raw information into predictive models, risk scores, and tenant profiles. The output is pure profit for shareholders and social control over residents. This isn't paranoid speculation. This is a clear-eyed analyzation of incentives, resources, and power. I'm not weaving some conspiracy. I'm connecting the dots that have already been publicly drawn. What has been framed as modernization and convenience is in reality modern capitalism, quietly restructuring the relationship between tenant and landlord into one data source and corporate operator. They have a plan, and so should you and I. Now, despite these concerns, my good friend remained optimistic, and he tried to assure me it's all good. He gave me the name of a woman named Stacy who will be managing Bayview, and said that he'll talk to her. He also let me know that Bayview may even change its name under new management. My relationship with this good friend of mine might be the only way to keep up with what's happening on the back end. Yet it is clear the game has changed. They're not just taking over the buildings, they're installing a system where every move we make becomes a permanent part of our file. And in the end, the only thing that's truly public about public housing might be the data they collect on us. The 99-year lease isn't about brick and mortar. It's a century-long claim on our data, our privacy, and our autonomy. Public housing is being reshaped to make our entire lives public. My friend's optimism is sincere, yet I think it misses the larger design. He sees new appliances and efficient repairs. I see a digital nervous system being wired into our homes. He sees a convenient app. I see a permanent ledger where every complaint becomes a data point, every interaction a metric. His optimism is a personal gesture in an increasingly impersonal system. But this isn't just about a change in management, it's a change in purpose. Public housing is being re-engineered into a data collection grid, a live testing ground for a future they are building for everyone. The smart city begins here, in our homes, where surveillance is packaged as convenience. So when they hand us the new keys and the new app, we must remember what is truly being unlocked. And with that, I'm gonna leave the same way I came, which is in peace. Peace.
You must do your own research, as I did.
If Mecca did this.